Lost One is the name, and Acid Drop is the game. Programmed by DM Kiss, otherwise known as Dennis Kiss, whose Google results offer really nothing of importance outside of an indie band with a pretty nice EP called Awake, and published by Salu Ltd, which, when you Google them, brings us to a site where we can see the expansive history of publishing, where it starts with Acid Drop, and that's it. I mean, Google also mentions the DOS version of Ghostbusters 2, but I don't even know if that's accurate. There's no site about it, so. At first glance, Acid Drop doesn't even look too bad, considering it's on the Atari 2600. The gameplay is a very straightforward puzzle game. You match the colors to the blocks, they disappear, and you get points for it. If they reach the top, you lose. Thing is, I kinda like what they have going here because by pressing up you can actually turn the blocks horizontally, which I think adds something a little new, but the colors kind of mesh together and it's sometimes can be a little hard to tell what is what, especially during a more faster paced game, which happens in the later levels. Whenever you clear a level, there's a big horizontal bar that appears, and if you put it anywhere on the screen, it'll clear that entire section. Kinda reminds me of Pack Attack with the fairy, that does pretty much the same thing. The first thing about this game I noticed is that it's a bit slow, but there's an option to change the level, as I mentioned, but the speed I personally recommend is level 20, because that seems to be the spot where it's not too fast. At level 10, it barely is noticeable from level 1, and at level 30, well, it's a little fast. Outside of that, the game is very basic. And I know what you're thinking, right? Oh, this is an Atari 2600 game. Of course it's basic. But I think there's some little things that I think could have been improved in order to add some more things to the game to make it feel more, not only like its own, but just better. First of all, when you clear blocks, and they drop into others of the same color, they don't disappear at all. Now, when you eventually get to them, they all go away, but I think the game could have been a lot more fun if they disappeared, and actually get some sort of chains going, like other games. And also the scoring as well. When you get 7 blocks in a row, you get 700 points. Each block is 100 points. There's no multipliers. There's no really incentive to get them into big long lines because they don't really add anything. It's literally just a straightforward number. It's a very basic sense of scoring, and it's a little boring, to be honest. I'm just surprised there's no chains or added scoring similar to the games like Columns, which was clearly inspired by. Now again, it might seem a little weird. Why am I comparing an Atari 2600 game to a Sega Genesis game? The Sega Genesis was essentially 2 generations ahead of the Atari 2600, and Columns was released in North America and the EU by 1990. So, considering most Atari games came out in 83, 82, 81, and even before that, it really wouldn't make sense for me to compare. However, Acid Drop, at least according to the internet, is one of the last officially released Atari 2600 games, and it was exclusive to the EU. And when did it come out? Well, almost 2 years after Columns was released, in 1992. So there's clearly inspiration, thereby there's no excuse. I personally think I'm not a programmer, right? But I personally think they could have at least added multiplications in the scoring, or chains, things like that. It could have made this game a lot better and a lot more fun. And if Columns wasn't an inspiration, well, I mean, I think it should have been, because I think it would have improved the game by a lot. The biggest problem with this game is actually something I haven't talked about yet, and that's the sound. Well, there isn't any, which is weird, because to me, the Atari 2600 has a lot of very iconic video game noise that could have fit very well here. But while there's zero sound, there's music. And the Atari isn't really known for its music, so what does that sound like? Well, take a listen. I think it speaks for itself. I mean, honestly, it's the worst thing about this game to me, and otherwise, it's an average Atari game. It's better just to play the game muted and put your own soundtrack. I personally like the song Clotho from the Columns soundtrack. I think it fits pretty well. The world record for this game, as far as I'm aware, was posted by Nads from Twin Galaxy's website with a score of 359,400. There's a video on it, which I would recommend watching muted because, you hear the music all the way. It's a pretty good score, considering my best was only 28,300 when I was playing this game for this video. So, good on him. Overall, I think there could have been improvements that would make Acid Drop a game you would actually want to play in the year 2020. But as of right now, based on the way it was released in 1992, the game's alright.